have a bunch of people whose friends claimed they drew things, and a bunch of people who are equally skeptical that that friend might not be fully truthful. So let's delve into a couple situations where friends were claiming they drew things and it might have been for clout. And again, before we get started, please don't send hate to any parties involved. So the first post is this post in r/isThisAI writing, high school classmate says she wrote a book and the artwork seems very AI. But when I asked who did her artwork, she deleted my comment and that seems sus. This is one page in the book. And it says Marley's mom rushed into the room. "Marley Mitchell, what's going on?" she asked. "Why are you throwing a temper tantrum? Get off that floor and get into your pajamas and go to bed right this minute," Mom said firmly. It features a little girl called Marley who is laying on a plush pink rug with glasses on the floor and a fluffy dog. The mom is standing in the doorway with a bonnet and robe on, looking real mad at the daughter. So let's take a peep at this art piece before we look at the other one that is attached. Looking at Marley's hair, Marley has braids, and some of the beads also look like they're part of the braid, right? These beads are on the end as little cute accessories, but what's happening with this bead here? It's having the same divot that the braid has, which is a bit odd. Also, there's no consistency with the braid. We have the V shape for the braid, and at the very top, it becomes little pearls, like twists at the top, and then a braid, and then it kind of goes back into being a twist, which is also odd because that's not really how you would do hair. And then we take a look at Marley's shorts, because on Marley's shorts, she has a back pocket that has the fold for the opening of the pocket on the wrong side. The fold for the pocket is actually facing downwards, which would imply that everything in your pocket would fall out. Marley is also wearing pink sandals. And then what's this? This kind of looks like it's also trying to be a foot and pink sandals, and it's doing neither. Now, let's take a peek at the glasses. The glasses also look very odd. For the frame of the glasses, the right side of the frame doesn't match the left side of the frame. For the most part, glasses are symmetrical, so that's odd. Now you look at the dog's eyes. The dog has 2 white dots in one eye, white highlights, and there's only 1 white highlight in the other eye. And the dog has these little paw prints on the bandana it's wearing, and one of the paw prints looks super garbled and messed up. Not to mention, the dog's tag is clipped to the bottom of the bandana. I've got a family dog. Even if we put a bandana on him, he still has a collar where the tag is attached to the collar. You don't really attach the tag to the bandana. That's just a bit odd. But once again, we have the dead stare that's happening because no one's looking at each other. The dog is looking off into the space, Marley is looking off into Narnia, and the mom is looking at the foot of the bed. No one's looking at each other, which again is a bit odd. None of this is making me feel confident that it's hand-drawn. Now let's take a look at the cover. Marley and the middle child syndrome. Marley looks really unhappy, for context, probably because she's the middle child, right? The mom is holding a younger girl dressed in yellow, and the dad is, buddying up with the older son that's holding a football, and there's a little dog. And now here we have a whole bunch of inconsistencies, because if you look at the dog's tag is now attached to a little necklace instead of the bandana. Instead of having paw prints on the dog's bandana, they're now little popcorn pieces. The bear that the younger sister is holding has really garbled up limbs. And then if you look at Marley's glasses now look different than the glasses that were on the floor. And Marley's earrings are also different. So why did Marley's design change from one page to another? And the commenters say, collar tag looks like a necklace in one picture, hanging to the side in this one. I would say it's AI. A real artist isn't going to make that mistake. And I mean, human mistakes are real. I say that all the time. But it's always suspicious if it's the same character that the artist drew multiple times. Like if an artist makes a mistake, with the design, right? Like they clipped, for instance, the tag to the bandana, they would carry that mistake through all of the art pieces because they just assume that is what it's supposed to look like. You don't often find an artist that redraws the same character over and over and over again, make it slightly different character by character. As in one bandana has paw prints and the other bandana has them in little flower popcorns. Another person said, if she doesn't give credit, then it's AI. And OP says, that was my exact thought. Another user says, this trend of, I'll create a children's book using AI for profit is so sad and gross. Yes, OP, I agree that this is AI, and I also agree that this is lame and sad. One of the great wonders of childhood used to be all the art people did so lovingly to entertain us. And OP says, I work at a library and we've received an influx of AI slop like this. And somebody asked what, as a librarian, they do about it, and OP adds, our system doesn't circulate it. Some slip through the cracks, but 90% get caught and either returned or put into the free books. Which, that's really interesting. I didn't know that. Another commenter said, AI can never do braids properly. Also, just look at the mother's face. And another commenter added a zoom in of the mom's face, and oof. that does look very nightmare fuel. So what are your thoughts? This post actually never got a conclusive label as to AI or not AI, but I'm gonna be honest, I suspect that it's AI generated. So next up, a user writes, my friend is saying they drew this. And they write, my friend keeps saying they drew this, but something feels off and I can't put my finger on it. So here we have a drawing that looks like a character design of a galaxy character wearing some sort of like galaxy magician, wizardy, like fancy outfit. Sorry, that's like a shit description, but you know what I'm talking about. And there are already some interesting elements to the art piece. One big red flag that I always, try to look for is their consistency in the way the character is drawn, especially specific elements like the ears. Again, this is a character sheet, so it's the same character. Why is this ear drawn very differently than this ear? Like the anatomy is completely different. If you think this is what the ear anatomy looks like, that's fine, right? But then like keep it consistent and this looks very different from that. That's already a bit odd. And then we have a really garbled up looking hand, which is most definitely not selling it, alongside more inconsistencies with the clothing. And that again is another way to tell, especially with these like character sheets. A character sheet is the same character drawn multiple times with different expressions, and they're almost always wearing the same outfit. If they're doing these like close-up headshots, right? If they have an alternate outfit, it will be an alternate outfit. This is a character that's supposed to be wearing the same outfit in these three drawings, but they're not, because this collar has these gold diamond buttons right at the neck, and it's not here for the full body. Whereas there is this large sapphire brooch in the center of the ruffles of the shirt in this outfit, and it's a different brooch in this one. And the brooch is like off-centered in this piece. And then we have the lapel, right? The lapel features this like galaxy print, which is pretty notable to the character design, and it's just not there for this part of the character. And one little anecdotal thing that I find a little interesting is when props are included but not used. As in, this character has like a large staff, except they're not holding the staff. The staff is just like arbitrarily leaning in space. And the character is like showcasing some magic of sort. I mean, if you're trying to showcase the character having the staff plus the magic, maybe you would have them hold the staff with one hand and put the other hand out to like show the magic. But showing the magic with the staff hand is odd, because now we have the random floating staff and one arm that's just down with a garbled up finger. A user says, always look into the details, particularly with character sheets like these. The brooch on the shirt, for example, is not only nonsense, it's not consistent with the poses. Anyone with the skill and desire to create a character like this by hand will go the extra mile to make sure that the filigree details of the characters, like brooches, chains, and staff, etc., are all as intricate as the character and make sense. Another user adds on, inconsistency is always such a clear sign. Never would a skilled artist spend so much time on such design only to butcher another with a childish level. Another person adds, there's a lot here I could point out, but the shoe staff shadow is making me chuckle. And somebody zoomed into the shoe where we have a really, really, really long pointed toe. And it says, why is the front of the shoe so long? And why is one pointy and the other round? This feels like AI because of the inconsistency. Even shoes with long front parts don't look like this. Another person adds, has your friend ever drawn anything before? If you know your friend, this shouldn't even be a question. Sad as it is, people don't wake up and make that. Trust me, I've tried. Another person adds my exact thoughts. If a friend is an artist with this level of skill, one would know. No one gets this good overnight. And the really interesting evidence, the top comment writes, even without it being AI, this exact image has been floating around Pinterest for a while now. Reverse image search this art from your friend, I dare you. Here is one of the many Pinterest listings. And they add a Pinterest listing where you can see there is that character sheet. Amongst, again, a bajillion character sheets, some AI generated, some real, that look like this. And this is from a while ago. There are comments, right? Pinterest doesn't tell you, as far as I know, from when something was posted, but there's comments as far back as 9 months ago. Somebody asked artist and the commenter says AI. And they add, quick edit for clarity, this is very much AI, but others have pointed out the obvious bits. I'm just showing that the friend didn't even create this one. I don't know if it classifies as art theft, but it's not a great look regardless. In the is this AI subreddit, this didn't get a flag, but we got that Pinterest proof right there. It's not the friend's work. And again, my source is Pinterest isn't a good enough source, but this is AI generated, so it's different. So finally, we have a post that's slightly related. This person's hosting an art contest and they write, submission for an art competition I'm hosting. I feel like the flowers in her hair looks off and the hair itself. Somebody posted this in my server hosting an art comp and I'm not too sure whether they have a similar style to what AI has. It feels like obviously AI, but if they have this cutesy art style, I would feel terrible. I feel like the baby's breath around the flowers in her hair look off and a bit randomly placed, and the daisies are sort of melting. Also, there's some parts of the hair that don't look human-made. like the loops that would be empty that are filled in, and a random place on the left side. I appreciate all the help. So look at this art piece, right? This is a more like simplistic chibi style with some cell shading. So cell shading is pretty popular with AI. You know, AI does a lot of the cell shading stuff. And as somebody that likes cell shading, it really sucks because it got co-opted. Feels bad. You know, some of the things that maybe look odd could be passed off as human error. So of course, everything we take it with a grain of salt, right? Like could be human error. You got to look at the artist's like whole portfolio and stuff like that to really make a judge, unless there's like some really glaringly obvious red flags that's like, you know, making things look a little bit suspicious. We got an uneven number of like white dots in one eye versus another. That could be artistic choice, you know? Maybe she really wanted to do the whole line, circle, dot thing for this eye and then many dots for this other eye, you know? Definitely could be an artistic choice there. That on its own, not really a red flag. I mean, one of the things I always kind of like snoop around is like, okay, can we tell what brush was used to make this? Because a lot of the AI will add like a lot of texture that doesn't make sense. With the hair, it's like, oh, the hair doesn't make sense that it's doing this or it's doing that. Some things, you know, it could just be like a style thing as to why they wanted it to look this way. You know, we got like a bit of hair here, it goes over the shoulder, and then we got like bigger waves coming down here. Could just be a style thing. You know, they wanted it to go over the shoulder and they wanted this chunk to go behind the shoulder. Possibly, right? There's a little bit of white in here. This could be an accidental brushstroke that was left or maybe a highlight. Again, could be artistic choice. So all of those not really focusing too much about that. The big one that to me looks like a pretty big, like, oh, wait, this is odd, is the flowers here. Because this looks really misplaced compared to the rest of the art piece. The rest of the art piece is using a thin, like, brush. It's kind of like a felt brush or something like that in Clip Studio Paint that you would find. And then these flowers are drawn in with a much thicker line art compared to the rest of the piece, which is just a choice. Maybe it's the artist really wanted to use the thicker line art for just the flowers, but they kind of look cut and paste, especially here, this leaf, because we have what looks like the black line art for the shape of the leaf, right? Something like this. And then there's that white around it. And then we have this like thinner line that kind of goes around the leaf as if it's like warping around the leaf. Do you see that? Do you see what I'm talking about here? That to me is really odd. But the biggest one, not the leaf or anything like that, it's the flowers. Because what is happening here? We have daisies. They're not the most difficult things to draw. Everyone has challenges in terms of their art process. Some people maybe just really don't want to draw flowers, but like it's not really difficult to draw a bunch of little flowers like this. So why are so many of the petals warping? Like we've got this one. This one's got a petal that looks like this, and then a petal that looks like that. And then we got the rest of the daisy petals. And the real big question, again, like I said, is you got to ask yourself, right? Like, would a human draw this? Would a human, when it comes to drawing flowers, really make the choice to draw flowers that look like little amoebas? We got this one over here. You know, this one's doing a little something like this. Would they make the choice to do that? Or would they, I don't know, draw a circle and then draw, okay, let's draw some flower petals. Yeah, looks like a flower. So you can't really be certain until you look at more of the artist's work, but whatever's happening over here with all these flowers makes me feel like generative AI was used in some part, if not all, of the drawing process, but at least for the flowers here. And the top comment reads, if you host art competitions for digital art, you should ask for the original file with all the layers from all contestants. They will not be able to produce anything meaningful, I think they mean to say, for you to look over because AI is too incompetent to do layer work, which is what 99% of digital artists do. And another person adds, for people responding to this saying not all digital artists work with layers, which is true, not all do. Some people literally do work in one layer. It's very uncommon for digital art, but you will see it with some artists who started traditional and then moved to digital. They just work the way they're familiar with. And traditional art, you work on one layer, right? So that's what they're used to. Or, you know, they merge them right away. That can happen for many reasons. Me in the past had an iPad with no memory. I had to merge all my layers because I could only open 20 at a time. So they add, almost all digital art apps are going to have a time-lapse function, something AI will struggle to replicate just as much, if not more, than layer work. So for OP, I would recommend asking for either of these. If an artist can't provide proof of process, then they don't need to be accepted into the contest. Another person added a screenshot of the flowers, writing, this looks weird for sure. Heavily agree with the user asking to see layers or work in progress shots for traditional mediums. And another commenter adds, that was the same thing that looked off to me. Part in between the bow should be hair, not background. But that was an easy thing for an artist to miss. And another person adds, this looks like a traced AI image. There's not much line confidence in the strokes, and the shading looks like it was done by an amateur. For the shading, I mean the actual shapes of the colored shading. It feels like a color by number coloring page. On top of that, the base flowers of the the leaves and daisies or baby's breath seem to have been copy pasted in, with a thick outline added around it. The line weight on the flowers is way off. And just to add a little 2 cents about the line weight, people are arguing it's a little bit more amateurish, etc. Which, I mean, you can make the argument for that. There are, however, some artists that do draw like this for numerous reasons, like disabilities, or they draw with a mouse, for instance, right? Because there are some artists that actually do that, which would cause you to not have pressure sensitivity, and then your lines might end up looking more like this. The big thing to add, though, to why it doesn't really apply, in my opinion, for this piece, is that artists who draw like that, you'll see that throughout all of their art pieces will have this sort of look to it. It's just because that's just how they draw. So there'll be that sort of consistency there, right? And we don't see that consistency even within the same piece, because all of this is done with like no pressure sensitivity whatsoever on like a felt pen or something like that. And then we have this again, which has a lot of pressure sensitivity in the veins of the leaves and some of the finer line work for the flowers, for these little flowers here. So that's why, to me, it doesn't make me feel like it's those edge case scenarios, right, that I just mentioned, because we do see some of that used in the piece here. So that inconsistency in the way it's drawn, it's just odd. It's giving copy and pasted. So with this piece, there was no full verdict that was left as well, but OP added a comment, writing, "Edit. They left the server and blocked after I asked for a speed paint. Thank you all for your input." And I think that one is the most damning one. It's because if you ask for a speed paint, if they did it in Procreate or whatever program, either they can make the argument, oh, sorry, I couldn't record a speed paint because, for some programs like Clip Studio Paint, you have to turn it on. But, no answer, explanation, nothing, just you dipped and blocked. They probably were running from something. So with this, just wanted to share these funny little stories with y'all. Again, don't bully or harass anybody. That's not what this is about, right? Don't use this as a way to incite hate. Just sharing some sort of scam processes people go through, allegedly. So with that, if you like this video, I appreciate it if you like and subscribe. Don't forget to check me out on Etsy or Coffee. And as of filming, we're almost at 300k subs, guys. We're almost there. We're, I think, at like 299, 500 something. So I'm really excited. Thank you guys so much for supporting this channel. It means a lot. Love talking about art with y'all. So yeah, thank you so much. And with that, I also stream on Twitch 3 days a week, Mondays and Saturdays at 6 p.m. PST, or Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. PST, where I do a podcast with my friend. So hope to catch y'all there or in another one of my videos. Peace.